everybody, Mike Pfeiffer with Pfeiffer Hobby here again. We're on the how-to channel today, doing a new video. It was not a mail-in or email suggestion, which I have a bunch of, guys, and I'm really sorry that I haven't kept up with them very well. But nevertheless, I had a person ask me on one of my YouTube videos. I do an explanation of putting the Kato Unitrack down, but no videos on what do you do if you want to modify the plan after you have it ballasted or the scenery up to it and that sort of thing. How do you remove it? Which means that we'll have to recap, number one, how I put it down and how you may put it down, on what you may put it down, and how we get that back up and make a change. And fortunately, and the reason that this video is prompted is we're getting ready to go into phase 2 of redoing the branch line on the ACT here, which means that the turntable, engine house, all that stuff over there, with the exception of the chemical factory and reliable storage, is going to come out. Anyway, you guys have heard that story, but nevertheless, I have to take out some track over there, and I have to take out right now a number 4 turnout that's giving me fits over there, and I think I'll just temporarily put in a regular piece of curved track or whatever I need to put in over there to bypass that for right now. But anyway, I'm going to show you guys how to pull up the Unitrack. So let's get started. Okay, guys, what I want to tell you first is my layout here is on a product called Homoso, which is a recycled paper product, holds nails real well, and I don't have any trouble in my environmentally controlled room. At the layout at the fairgrounds, we used Homoso, spent a lot of money on it, and the minute we turned the swamp cooler on, it just warped all over the place. So we went to foam out there. I'd never used foam before, and you may use plywood, you may use something else. It really doesn't matter. But what I do want to say about it is, in the Homoso, I did use Pico track pins to hold my track down. So in the video, you'll probably see me removing those pins. You may or may not, I don't know yet. But anyways, I hold my track down with pins. If you use foam, I'm assuming that you are gluing the track down somehow, and hopefully you used the method of putting a dab of silicone where the nail holes go down through on your Unitrack. That's what we prefer out at the fairgrounds because it makes it easy to pop the track up if we need to. If you glued it down with Elmer's glue or some kind of glue all along the edge of the track, I'm not exactly sure. This method should work to loosen up the glue and allow you to pop it up. But in any event, no matter what you've laid it on or anything, you're going to have to use like a putty knife or something like that to, once you get it all soaking wet and everything, to stick under it and pop it up. If it's with dabs of silicone, those silicone dabs will pop up. If you've got the nails in it, obviously it'll creep up when you stick the putty knife under there. There's any number of ways to pry up that track. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. My particular method, I have nails in it. So let's get started doing this. Okay, guys, I've been having trouble with this number 4 ever since I put it in, and I'm gonna take it out. You can see that it's not ballasted yet. However, I'm going to go ahead and take this siding out back here, and this track has got to remain. But anyway, we're gonna loosen this up just because it has ballast on one side and it has scenery on the other side, plaster on the other side. So we're going to take out this little section. It's going to have to come out anyway, so that's what I'll demonstrate on. The first thing you'll need is a little bit of alcohol, because we're going to spray it down with water. And we want to put alcohol in our water just to make it flow better, just as we do when we're ballasting. And then you need some kind of sprayer. This happens to be the one I use, not a commercial for Suave by any means, but it's a good this is a good misting sprayer. I use it for my scenery work. It happens to have, right now, hot water in it and a little bit of alcohol. And we're going to use that to thoroughly wet down the area. But first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about how your track may be attached. Getting the scenery off will be the same, but we need to talk about how you attach your track down. Okay guys, like I said, I have my alcohol and my hot water. Out of the tap, you don't need to boil it, but just hot water, and I find that it absorbs in and soaks in better. And all we're going to do first is just wet down the area thoroughly. All along the piece of track that I'm going to remove, which takes me beyond the camera's view here, but down past my my little control tower. And I'm going to wet both sides. We also, I suppose, and it didn't come to my head, but I guess we wouldn't really need to use a sprayer. We could just dribble the water on there out of some kind of container, be it a blue bottle or any kind of bottle you have. But the idea is to really soak the track in this particular area that I'm doing here. And you can see that I'm giving it plenty of water. In fact, I'm giving it enough water that I can see it actually water standing on the sides of the rail. And as you can see, this rail is pretty well anchored down with scenery. I don't know if I can, let me try and zoom in here a little bit. I'm not too good at zooming in. You can see that it's pretty well anchored by the plaster on one side and a small amount of ballast on the near side. So let me back out here and we'll let that soak for just a few minutes and I'll come back to it. Okay guys, I've let this soak for about 5 minutes, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in, and you can see that I'm using the same angle as the edge of the Unitrack, and I'm just peeling back the ballast from the edge of the Unitrack piece that I want to remove. And I'm going to be out of the camera here, but I'm doing the same thing all the way down to the end of this piece of track that I'm going to remove. By the way, you can see that I'm using my trusty putty knife. Another thing is that I'm going to try and just save this ballast that's here. So I'm just going to leave it flipped over like that, basically. Now we're going to move on to the other side and try and get the plaster out. I forgot to mention, but another thing you're going to want to have handy is some paper towels, because I have a little bit of residue of ballast on my scraper here. Something you can just wipe it into, or you could use a shop vac, but I don't want the shop vac running while I'm doing this. So let me try and do the plaster on the other side, which is usually a little tougher, but I think we can get it. And I'm going all the way down again to the far end that's out of view here. And like I said, I'm doing this at kind of an angle. And I don't know if you can see, oh yeah, I am in the camera. Okay, and I'm just trying to pry this back enough that I'll be able to get this piece of track out. Because I don't, there may be cases where, and I don't care here necessarily in my situation, but there may be a situation where you're going to replace that piece of track because it's damaged or whatever the case is, and you may want to preserve as much of that nearby scenery as you can. But I think you can see there that I now have it peeled back from both sides of the track, and now we're going to get into removing it. Okay, now as I said, we're going to start to remove it, and I don't know how this is going to come out. I'm trying to make sure I'm in the camera here. But I'm going to start in the middle as if you would if you were lifting a section out here in the middle. Like say you had a main line and you wanted to remove a piece in the middle. I could start at the end down there, but that's kind of not giving you the information you need. But the Kato Unitrack is flexible enough to pull it up in the middle and undo it. So let's see what I come up with here. I'm just going to stick the edge of the putty knife down under the middle of a, well, not really the middle of a piece here, that's the end of a 9-inch piece, and I'm just going to twist. I don't pry this way and I don't pry that way, and it doesn't really matter, but I prefer to twist. And you can see how it lifts the track up. You can, well, you probably can't see from your, yeah, you can see from your angle. There's a feeder wire right here. We're going to preserve that feeder wire. But once I pry on this track in a couple of spots here and get it lifted up, and like I say, you may have track nails or you may have silicone. But in any event, this is what you're looking to do, is pry this up to this point. Then we're just going to detach it. We're going to lift it up and we're going to twist it towards and away from you like this to try and not ruin the rail joiners. And then all we do basically is remove the piece. I believe that you can see in the picture here, you can see one of my nails there, one of my Pico track pins that I use to hold it down. Like I say, you may have silicone or something on a point such as this right here. This is where I prefer to put silicone. There, and where the other one is, I can't see it here. But in here, I would put silicone on this 9-inch piece. I would put silicone in those 2 points to hold this piece down on styrofoam. But anyway, so much for removal. Let me just briefly, I'm not going to put any track back in there, but let me briefly talk about if you had to replace this piece or a piece or a switch. I mean, this applies to a turnout or anything. This method applies to a turnout or anything. So let's get to what you would do if you had to put a piece back in. Okay guys, I'm out here at my deep sink, which is in the garage. You guys have probably seen it in the videos, and I'm going to clean up that piece that I removed, and we're going to use that piece to show you how to stick it back in if you needed to replace it. But I wanted to just cover cleaning up the track a little bit, and I am fortunate that I have a parts cleaning brush, a car parts cleaning brush here, and what I'm going to do is just remove all the ballast from this piece of track here. Like I said, you can't remove the staining paint, but you can remove the ballast, so you don't have to deal with that. And all I do is, put it in hot water along with my hand. Get the brush wet, just make sure the piece is plenty wet, and brush. It's pretty simple. Actually on this piece here, I think in the picture, you can see the Elmer's glue that or the scenic cement, or whatever it is that you're using. You can see the glue start to turn white again, telling you that it's releasing from the piece. You can see that most of the ballast is gone off of this end where I just brushed briefly. But let me finish this guy up. I may use this piece again when I go to rebuild this area. And depending, I mean, you know, you wouldn't want to have to, it'd take you forever to clean all these pieces if you're going to do an entire, or take up an entire layout. It's not much to it, just a matter of time. I'm going to rinse it off. I always recommend, the joiners are relatively inexpensive. I don't ever really recommend reusing the joiners. But you can certainly reuse this piece of track once you clean the ballast off it. If you're going to stain your track the same as you had it before. My rail is already painted and everything's pretty much ready to go. A little brown paint on here from where my scenery was. But nevertheless, that's how you clean up the track if you want to reuse it. I always recommend putting on new rail joiners if you were going to reuse the track on another layout, or if you're going to, even reusing this piece of track, I would put new joiners. So let's get back in the room. Okay guys, when we get ready to put track back in, what I would recommend, if you're going to put track back in, is go with the putty knife straight up and trim off this edge right along the edge of the track where your track was, and I would take this material that I originally folded over and actually remove it. And when I say remove it, make the edge straight, as you can see that I'm doing over here on the outside, and basically pull this material straight out and clean out the area that you're going to put the track back in. And normally, and I'm using the term normally, I want you to pay attention to, I would get, at this point, the shop vac out and vacuum up all the residue here. I am not going to have you listen to the shop vacuum, so this won't really turn out too well. But at this point, once you had that all cleaned out, you would simply put in your new piece of track with your new joiners, and you would put in one end and then get the other end in, and you usually have to remove about at least a foot or two to actually remove an intermediate piece and put it back in, and then you would just push it back down in place. And if you chose, you could silicone it or pin it down. If I was doing this the second time, I would have no need to pin it down because I already have scenery up to it, and I could just reballast my track, redo my scenery right up against the edge, and off I go. And like I said, this would apply to turnouts, anything that you wanted to change in the way of Unitrack. I don't really know what else to cover here, but that's basically how I do it, and it makes a nice neat slot. And I've never found any pieces of track out at the club or here that I couldn't replace, or we couldn't replace by doing this. We don't ballast our track out there, so it's a little bit easier, and we did it that way on purpose so that if we did need to fix something, we didn't have to. But on a home layout, you know, you want it to really stand out and look nice, so generally most guys are ballasting this stuff. Not necessary, but we do. But anyways, that's pretty much how you would lift up and remove a piece and then put the scenic material back. I think right here you can see where we folded this. If we needed to, we could actually reuse this ballast. You can see that once it's wet, you can pretty much do whatever you want to with it. We could put it right back in there, poke it down, brush it, or even with your finger, as you can see me doing here. And I will wipe my finger off first, and then I will see if I can pan in on that a little bit so that you can see where I push that back down. So you don't even really lose a lot of ballast. Now obviously you can't do that with the plaster on the other side, but you're going to fill that with a little bit of plaster or some kind of ground cover, and you're off and running again. Okay guys, I hope that was informative to you. It's really not hard. We do it all the time out at the club. Anytime we need to make a modification or something, we use that same technique of wetting the surrounding territory with some warm water, maybe with some alcohol in it, and let it sit for a little while, and then basically just pry it up. And as you can see, you can usually wash most of the plaster and stuff off it. Of course, if you've stained it, like I showed you, like I have, you cannot get the stain off. So if you don't stain the track, which we don't out at the fairgrounds, you can do a pretty good job of cleaning up that track and reusing it in another place. So that's about it for today, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as usual, we'll see you on the next one.